Hi everyone, welcome back to another edition of DA Super Sports Monday. I'm changing the name to DA Super Sports Monday because we are extremely super. I'm David Statman, the Daily Athenaeum sports editor, and this is Chris Jackson, the Daily Athenaeum associate sports editor. We're actually upstairs this time, and we actually have things in the background, so we're not in this soulless soundstage downstairs where we never actually go. But all the same, still we have a lot of West Virginia sports to talk about. It was another really big week in WVU sports. We had basketball with two more huge games, both losses. You had baseball starting off their season. You had intriguing things happening with the WVU football team. So I think we should just start off with the obvious thing, which was the other day, Oklahoma coming to town, a 14-point loss for WVU, coming off of a loss to Texas, and now tonight, a big game against Iowa State. They have to win this game if they still have any, intention of making a challenge for the Big 12 championship. What are your thoughts on what we just saw against Oklahoma?
I mean, you look at it too. Dexter Miles was out. That's one of their starting guards. Jay Sean's got an injured ankle out there. I mean, nothing really went right either. Oklahoma just getting all those offensive boards. West Virginia wasn't forcing turnovers, and plus Buddy Hield. There's that Buddy Hield factor for you too.
Nobody can stop Buddy Hield. He's basically like the T-1000 from Terminator.
Pretty much.
Like, he is just this automaton that won't stop until you're dead. And when WVU, we have the stats right here, you look at what they did. If you shoot the ball that poorly against a team that has Buddy Hield, you're done. And Javon Carter, 1 of 10. Jay-Sean Page, 4 of 16. Those are two of your best scorers. They don't have Dexter Miles. And Devin Williams played, I think, one of the worst games he's ever played as a Mountaineer.
Oh, by far. I mean, they really did not look that good out there. At the start, they struggled. They kept getting back in the game each time, but every time they got back, Oklahoma would have a run of its own. West Virginia 9-0 run to tie it up. Oklahoma goes on a 9-0 run, capped off by that Buddy Hield 3 to make it 61-52, and West Virginia had no chance after that.
So where do you think this puts them right now? I mean, obviously 9-5, they've pulled into a two-way tie with Oklahoma, who had lost 3 out of 4 going into that game.
Well, there's also Baylor, too, that's tied with them.
Yeah, Baylor's creeped up in there. You have Iowa State's there. Texas is playing really, really well. And you've just got Kansas sitting ahead of everyone again. They're probably going to win, their 12th straight Big 12 title? I mean,
Yep.
What can you say about this?
Well, you look at it, too. All these teams are playing really good. But let's not forget, Texas Tech's coming up there, too. Now they're 7-7. They've won 4 straight. 3 of those teams were just ranked opponents out there, too. Texas Tech's looking good, and West Virginia has to play them on senior night in a little over a week. So that's going to be another tough game for them.
And you have to wonder what effect this is going to have going into the postseason. I talked to Bob Huggins and a couple players about this over the weekend. Just the effect that this ringer of conference games you have every single year in this conference has on you. Bob Huggins told me that this is the toughest league that he has ever coached in, including the Big East, all those years he had in the Big East. And it shows. It takes a toll. It wears teams out going into the NCAA tournament. Last year, 7 teams of the Big 12 made the tournament. Only 2 of them made it to the second weekend. And one of the things that Huggins told me was one of the main reasons why West Virginia was one of those teams was because Jawan Staten and Gary Brown got hurt and they were rested up.
Yeah, exactly. But you look at it, too. One night you're playing Oklahoma, the next night, like West Virginia has, they're playing Iowa State, who's got Georgia's knee, and they've got a lot of experienced players on that roster, too. Big 12's a really tough place to play, and 60% of these coaches have coached in a Final Four, too.
Yeah, which is, never happened.
No, it's never happened. There's not a statistic anywhere else in college basketball.
There's no nights off at all. And especially when you have players banged up, Dexter Miles hurt, and I think they really limited themselves against Oklahoma with Elijah making only 7 minutes, playing, Devin Williams, putting that much on Devin Williams when he was playing an awful game. I don't think Macon's the answer, but, Devin needed to sit down for a while. And only playing Teyvon Myers 8 minutes, in which I thought that he showed something in those 8 minutes, but and especially with Page, 4 of 16, Carter had a dreadful game, and still limiting Teyvon Myers, I think that was probably a mistake.
Yeah, we look at it. That was a mistake, obviously. Teyvon played great defense throughout. He also had that one drive to the hoop, too. It was just great play, but you look at it, too. Huggins even said after the game, Teyvon takes plays off. He's not going to deal with that. But, I mean, as much as I agree with Huggins about that, you can't really give guys the amount of time if they're going to take plays off. Teyvon played a great game. He should have gotten more minutes, but then again, I'm not going to question Huggins.
I mean, he talked about it after the game. He talked about it a lot. Young players taking plays off. And he said it about Issa Ahmad, too.
He said it about Deshaun Butler, too, back in the day.
Yeah, he brought up Deshaun Butler, and everyone knows that he's never going to trash Deshaun Butler for anything.
Oh, never.
But it's just a common struggle that these young players have, and Teyvon Myers is his first year at the D1 level. But you're in a position where you have to play these guys. This team, you can't play, and Huggins has said this over and over again, this team cannot play the way they want to play if they only have 8 or 9 guys.
Yep. That's exactly right. You look at it, too. Having Beetle Bolden out, you can tell the effects are starting to happen, too. That kid was a proven scorer out of high school. He comes in, the Bahamas trip, he was dominating, man. He can score, and now he's not here. You've got guards keep getting hurt. You've had Daxter hurt. Jay Sean's not 100%, obviously. It's tough, especially in this league and the opponents you're going to play.
And one of the biggest problems with this team I see is when Devin Williams has a night like this, where he's 4 of 11, where he's getting basically pushed around by Kadeem Latin, who had 13 rebounds, 6 block shots, 5 of them in the first 6 minutes. They don't have a plan B in their front court. They don't really go small like that. They always have a big man out there. And Elijah Macon, I don't think that he's earned that kind of trust. And Brandon Watkins has basically been a non-factor the entire season.
Yeah, it's hurt. He came back. He was supposed to be out the whole year, too, but Huggins decided to pull the plug and have him out there. I'm not sure about that, but I guess at this point you can kind of see why Watkins is out there just because there's no depth.
There's no depth.
That spot. He had to do it.
You know what they need to do? It's time to free young Porzingis.
Logan Rout, baby.
Logan Rout.
Yeah.
Cameron, West Virginia. 7 feet tall. I watched him in shoot-around before our media availability on Friday. He was shooting one of the far baskets down there. He missed every single shot he took, but I admired his panache. I think he's a good kid. Really celebrates very well on the sideline. Him and Lamont West, the headband hammer.
As great as the bench is, though, they're copying some stuff from Monmouth, too.
But, I mean, still, though.
Teyvon Myers, though.
Teyvon Myers never sits down. I've noticed that during the game. Teyvon Myers will stand up the entire game. He cannot sit down. And I like Teyvon Myers because, you know, I like him as a player. I think he's got some flash to his game. I think he's got some talent. But Teyvon Myers reminds me of me. Teyvon Myers is who I would be if I were a basketball player.
Well, you've made the reference with the Capri Sun.
Oh, yeah. I think that, you know, Teyvon Myers is that kid who grew up drinking like 6 Capri Suns a day, probably loved Dragon Ball Z. That's who Teyvon Myers is. Teyvon Myers is me, and I am Teyvon Myers, and I feel a kinship with him, and that's why I want him to play well. Hashtag Teyvon time. He's going to average 20 points a game next year. But, you know, WVU, obviously, a really good team, a lot of talent. They've gotten where they are on merit, but still a lot of holes left in this team. But let's you know, move on to something that's a little less depressing. WVU baseball, obviously they had a tough opening game against Charleston Southern, but we saw the formula of how they're going to win games. We said it last week. They're going to win games by pitching.
And look at their pitching. B.J. Myers pitched on Sunday 8 shutout innings. Struck out 5. That was a great outing from him. You got Blake Smith comes out of the pen, gets the save. He was 24th round draft pick too from last year's draft and came back. You just look at this pitching rotation. Everyone's back. You've got Donato coming in. Looks like Friday starter now. Vance on Saturdays because he's the lefty. They want to go righty, lefty, righty. And you got Myers on Sundays. And if you can have Myers being the number 3 starter there, pitching like that, this team's going to be very tough to beat.
And that's the big thing with B.J. Myers is they knew they had Donato coming in. He had a great year last year. Vance is a senior. He's proven himself. Myers ended up with a 3.82 ERA last year. He was a freshman All-American, but he was inconsistent a lot of the season. And I think a lot hinges on whether he'd be able to take that leap. And he showed against Charleston Southern that he has that ability. 8 shutout innings. They win 3-0. 5 hits. They didn't really make any real threats against him. And we knew that if they were going to win, it was going to be through their pitching. A lot of youth in that lineup, and we saw a lot of that youth.
Well, they had 4 freshmen start opening day, too. One of them's a redshirt freshman, but that's still a freshman right there. You got Galuski. Played a great game today, too. Had a huge double in the 9th inning, basically sealed the victory there.
But those 3 starting pitchers combined for no earned runs in that first weekend against Charleston Southern. Those 2 runs that Donato allowed were both unearned. And that's how they win. That's how they're going to win baseball games this year. A lot of youth. Cole Austin at second base showed something. I mean, that is going to be one of the big question marks for this team, is how does Austin and Galuski stepping into the middle infield, how's that going to work? And I think the early returns, I mean, obviously we've only seen one series of baseball, but they showed promise. And Randy Mazey's showing a lot of confidence in Cole Austin, having him bat third in his first weekend as a collegiate player. Both the second and third hitters are both true freshmen.
Well, let's look at it, too. We talked to them at that media availability before the Baylor game. They were telling us they love these freshmen. A lot of praise for Galuski, a lot for Cole Austin, but let's not forget about Kyle Gray out there, too.
Yeah.
He had a great game today. He really did. 2 for 4 on Sunday. It's a great game out there. You got to run in. That's about it, yeah.
Absolutely. Last year was a power team. This year's going to be probably more of a small ball team. Jackson Kramer hit a home run in the first game. Didn't really do anything the rest of the week.
0 for 8 cents, but...
Caleb Potter also knocked in a home run in the second game. That's not usually how they're going to do it, but it's exciting to watch. It's going to be exciting to watch a team that can get out on the base pass and get out and move and pitch well. That's how they're going to win. And, you saw Ray Guarini have a huge series, ended up 545 for that series. Whatever veterans they have in that starting lineup, they're going to need to get something out of them. And that's Kyle Davis, and that's Kramer, and that's Guarini, and Casey Huff. They need production out of those guys. And, obviously they weren't able to get the sweep, but I think it was really, encouraging what you saw out of the pitching staff. And out of the bullpen, they probably have one of the best closers in the Big 12 in Blake Smith. 24th round pick, like you said, elected to come back for his senior year, throws heat. He can really go.
Well, let's not just say the Big 12, let's say the entire country, too. Let's think about that. 24th round pick returning for his senior year. He's a closer. He showed it today. I mean, that's one outing on Sunday, but still showed a lot of promise for them. This pitching staff's loaded. I'll tell you that right now. You need a good pitching staff to compete in the Big 12.
A 24th round pick, and I thought that there was a really solid chance that he would go out and sign with the Washington Nationals when they took him, but obviously a big win for them to get him back. Pitched a scoreless inning with 2 strikeouts on Sunday. You saw Vance threw 5 innings, only 5 innings on Saturday, and then it was Brandon Boone who came in. He threw 3 scoreless innings, 1 hit, 5 strikeouts, and he's going to be another huge piece for this bullpen as well. Really have to feel good about it, especially they don't have a home game for another few weeks.
Not until March 11th.
Yeah, not until March 11th against Old Dominion. They're going up against UNLV this weekend. They've got a game with the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, that's going to be really
so cool to watch.
They actually have a trip. They go to Vegas, then they play the Diamondbacks, and they go to Hawaii also. That's a really fun trip for this team.
Why the heck aren't we college baseball players?
Big mistakes on
They get to go to Vegas, and then they get to go play against a Major League Baseball team, and then they get to go to Hawaii for 4 games.
We missed our calling.
We missed our calling, man.
We really did.
That's on me. That's on me. I'm too slow and unathletic. The only thing I could do was play like offensive line and like wrestle.
Well, you're good at the rec too in basketball.
I do, but my offense is like 100% putbacks.
So like Jonathan Holton out there.
I'm like Jonathan Holton
without
no floater. I'm like if Jonathan Holton and Elijah Macon had a child and conceived, a child with like all the worst athletic traits of both of them and all the worst traits of their game, and then made them a 5'11" white guy, and then it's me. Pretty much. Through some miracle of science, I don't know. With the advances they're making in genetic engineering nowadays, I really, can't say that anything's out of the question anymore. Let's move on, though.
Let's move on to Dana
Let's move
Holgorsen.
on to Dana Holgorsen. Some really interesting things going on with this
They're no
contract
longer
situation.
talking about a contract extension right now, and you look at it too. They also had cornerbacks coach Brian Mitchell leave for Virginia Tech.
Yeah. Brian Mitchell goes to Virginia Tech. Really did a great job coaching this cornerback unit last year with the veterans. And it's going to make rebuilding that unit a lot tougher.
Well, they had 23 interceptions last year too. All the cornerbacks that started are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Mitchell's gone. He leaves right before spring practice starts. That's a huge loss. Now they got to bring in someone else. Just right before all these different practices starts, I don't know who they're going to bring in. And Dana's no longer got that contract extension.
Yeah.
I think Mitchell's departure is a direct correlation and effect because of that.
Well, it's you really get to see a lot of now Shane Lyons' his philosophy on coaching contracts. He said that coordinators are multi-year and assistants are year-to-year.
Yep.
So the only two coaches that they have guaranteed for 2017 are Tony Gibson, the defensive coordinator, and Joe Wickline, offensive coordinator. We don't know about Dana, obviously past this year. We don't know about any of the assistant coaches. None of them have been given extensions. None of them are in talks for extensions. And that's one of the main reasons that pushed Brian Mitchell to go to Virginia Tech. And it's going to make rebuilding that unit so much harder because they already knew they were in for a huge task with Worley, Chestnut, and Rumpf, who played the majority of the snaps, all gone. Freshmen coming in, JUCO players, transfers coming in, and we still have no idea how it's going to shake out. That was already one of the biggest question marks on this team.
And now that Mitchell's gone, who knows what the heck's going to happen with this unit too. But let's go on to Dana too. What do you think has to be his record this upcoming season to get a contract extension?
He has to win at least 8 games in the regular season.
Yep, that's right. Because he's been stuck in that 7-win hump almost every year he's been here, basically.
He got to 8 wins for the first time in the Big 12 last year, but that was including the bowl game. And I think if the Kansas State game had never happened, if they had just won that game like normal, like they should have, Dana's fine. Everyone's singing Dana's praises, saying that he faced one of the toughest 4-game stretches that anyone has against all those teams when they were healthy. And yeah, he lost them, but
they were at Oklahoma.
Yeah, they were at Oklahoma.
They played Oklahoma State, who was a really good team, a great defense.
They should have won that game. And they play at Baylor, at TCU before those guys got hurt.
They
Trevon
go
Boykin
against
was basically
Corey Coleman against
miracles.
Baylor, who's just a beast out there. He's going to have a long NFL career. You got Trevon Boykin in TCU. No one can bring that guy down.
Boykin was performing miracles in that game. I was there, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was insane. But that Kansas State game completely shattered a lot of the trust that most people had.
And they lost to a kid that was playing quarterback that's a receiver.
Yeah.
Too. That's just Bill Snyder for you right there.
That's
He'll
Bill
do anything.
Snyder. I mean, Baylor did the same thing with
Yeah,
Lynn
Baylor
Sophorn.
that was a great time, wasn't it?
Can't jinx the
They
Lynx.
had him and Johnny Jefferson out there. It's a really good time in
You
football.
can't jinx the Lynx.
Then he's got a brother named Bricks.
Yeah, he does.
BRIXX.
And my name is David, and your name is Chris.
Parents did us dirty.
We really missed out on a lot of stuff, man.
We really did.
We missed out on playing college sports. We missed out on having cool names.
I blame the parents.
I blame my parents for everything. But, another bad break for WVU. Obviously, Brian Mitchell was a really tough loss for this team. Another bad break. We talked a lot last week about TJ Neal, the Illinois grad transfer linebacker, who was choosing between WVU and Auburn. Where was he going to go? Can't really blame him for choosing Auburn, but that's a really, really tough loss for this team.
Well, it is too. And he was supposed to decide on Saturday. But
And we
does
heard
he do?
about
He
it on
decides-
Tuesday.
Yeah, he decides a few days before that he's going to go to Auburn. But, that's not a surprise. He said even in an interview with an Auburn newspaper that Auburn was the highest on the list, too. It'd be hard to turn that down. And can you blame him? That's SEC football.
No, you
right there.
can't blame
SEC
him.
football
Auburn-
just breeds defenses.
Yeah. I mean, you go get the chance to play for Auburn, you might have a chance to win a national title. Possibly. I mean, they did win one once.
Yep.
So
With Cam Newton.
With Cam Newton, obviously, but it opens up that position race again. We talked about it last week. The linebacker race is a very interesting one with WVU, with all three of their starters gone: Barber, Kwiatkowski, Petaway.
Like a combined 39 tackles returning, basically.
And I said it last week, projecting ahead, it looks like a reasonable assumption that we're going to have Al-Rashid Bennett, the starting middle linebacker, and you're going to have Xavier Preston, possibly as one of the starting outside linebackers. Two guys that haven't ever been consistent starters for this team, but at least guys who were primary backups.
But they were backups to really good
played.
guys, too.
Yeah, but they
It's hard to win that
they
job.
have played.
Yeah.
They have experience playing in actual games.
And they've got
playing
Brendan
linebacker.
Ferns coming in, too, which is big.
And that's the question.
Yeah.
Are they going to count now on Brendan Ferns, who is their best high school, player coming in this recruiting class? Are they going to toss him on there and just hope he adjusts right away? Or do they have a choice? I mean, they have guys like Hadari Christian.
I don't think they have a choice, honestly.
Exactly.
And they've got him coming in. Coaches love this kid, too, because he's a really smart kid. A very, very smart kid. You see what this kid does. He's off social media. He barely uses that at all. He's a petroleum engineer major coming in here.
That's one of the reasons
crazy.
why he considered WVU over teams like
Well,
Alabama.
I'm not sure how kids can balance that major out with football, but apparently this kid can do it.
Well, we'll see if he actually continues to be a petroleum engineering major. I mean, that might be tough to do.
He will be.
I hope so. I think he is. He seems like a smart kid. But
I like it.
that's a really big question.
Yeah.
Can he adjust right away, and how much are they going to put on him to adjust right away? Because you really only have Benton and Preston, maybe Christian. I mean, they used, of their 3 second-teamers, there was Preston, Benton, and then Edward Muldrow, who also graduated. And so you're really digging somewhere
Well,
if you're not going for Ferns.
The opening game against Missouri, he might even get split snaps. He might split snaps with Christian, like you said. He could. This is possible, and he had got Youngstown State the next week. They can really just make that the deciding game. Who's better after that? Because then you've got BYU, then you got Big 12
then you
conference
jump
play.
into it, yeah.
So those are the 2 games they're really going to find out about.
We're going to see. I mean, that's obviously we're still a few weeks away from the start of spring practice, and then we've got the spring games not for another about 2 months. So a lot of time to look at that and think about how those position races are going to shape up. But, it's a really interesting thing to watch over the next couple of weeks.
It really is. Spring ball should be a fun time, too.
Absolutely.
For the team, they've got a lot of holes on defense to fill, but it should be a lot of competition and a lot of fun to watch.
And plus, we're going to get the road trip up to the Greenbrier.
I can't
Spring
wait for
game.
that.
It's going to be awesome. We're going to get lit. Not really.
Lit on football,
this is a family show.
We'll be lit on football.
We're going to be lit on football and life, Chris.
Yeah, that's true. Good
So
on
just
football game.
just a really big week of sports to come up for WVU. 2 more games for basketball, obviously. UNLV for baseball, and then the Arizona Diamondbacks on Monday the 29th. 2 big games for basketball. Iowa State tonight at 9 o'clock. George Niang, Young Spreewell, Jamil McKay in the group. And then Oklahoma State go on the road. Juwan Evans just announced out for the season. The team already gutted by injuries.
Because they had Phil Forte out, too. That was their top scorer coming back. Now Evans is out. The team has to win that game.
Those are 2 games that you think WVU should win, and they have to win. They have to win these 2 games, having lost 3 of 4. They beat Iowa State on the road by 5 in one of their biggest wins of the whole season. And then Oklahoma State, it is on the road, and Oklahoma State did beat Kansas in that building.
This is Big 12 basketball. This is college basketball, too.
It is.
I mean, Maryland lost to Minnesota.
Maryland lost to Minnesota.
So that
Minnesota. Minnesota's players were crying after the game.
They're at Rutgers level. Think about that. That's sad.
That's Rutgers level.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Teams that shouldn't even be in the Big Ten.
Oh,
But those are 2 must-win games, and they're 2 games that they should win, especially considering how tough their last week is. Texas Tech on fire, and then at Baylor.
It's a really tough stretch.
And then you got the Big 12 tournament, and anything can happen in the Big 12 tournament, especially this year. It's so wide open. There's so many really good teams. Just really have no idea what's going to happen on these last couple of weeks of play for the Mountaineers in the Big 12.
Even if they just struggle the late part of the season, even if they struggle in the Big 12 tournament, this team could still make a run in the NCAA's too. Because they'd have extra rest if they lose early. And this team's got a great defense, Huggins. This team could do something.
Yeah, you have to look at it and think about how their style is going to adjust. smothered Maryland last year. They really played as well as they ever have in the press against Maryland. But that was a different team. That was a team that could bring 13 guys, into the game and just rotate them through in the press. And this year they have maybe 10. So it's a whole new ball game. Now I think those 10 players are probably all around qualities better, but you need more depth.
But they need more production from starters too. Look, the
Absolutely.
bench outscored Oklahoma on Saturday 39-7. But the starters scored just 23 points. Buddy Hield alone had 29.
I think you pulled up the stat yesterday that since about mid-January, Javon Carter shot, 19 of 79 from the
yep.
field? That cannot
That
continue.
can't happen.
That cannot continue, especially for a guy who is a good shooter.
He's
We
a
saw it last
talented
year.
guy. We saw it last year. He showed flashes where this kid could shoot from long, long range out
Yeah.
there too.
But again, we're gonna see what's going to happen. Another huge 2 games this week. Another big weekend for baseball, and obviously have to keep track of everything going on in football with Dana's situation and the position races and everything. But we'll see, man.
We
We'll
will.
see.
It should be an exciting time.
That's about all we have today for you guys. So, again, thanks for watching. I'm David Stavin. This is Chris Jackson for DA Sports Super Sports Monday. Thanks, guys.